All right, so let's dive back into Heliostar metals. If you've been keeping an eye on their stock, things are getting pretty interesting.
Definitely heating up.
Remember our last deep dive when we talked about their goal of becoming a mid-tier gold producer?
Yeah, they've been busy.
A lot has happened since then, and their stock's been climbing like crazy. They've been making some big moves, especially with that acquisition in Mexico.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is how they're making that jump from a junior explorer to a company with producing mines. It's a pretty bold strategy, especially in a place like Mexico. It comes with its own set of challenges.
Definitely. And they really went for it, buying Argonaut Gold's entire Mexican portfolio. That's two producing mines, San Agustin and La Colorada, a development project called Cerro del Gallo, and a promising exploration project at San Antonio. All for $5 million. dollars.
5 million. That's incredible when you think about what they got for that price. But I think the real win might be what they gained beyond just the assets themselves. They inherited a whole team of people who really know how to operate in Mexico, which is invaluable in a place known for its, well, let's just say its complex regulations and political landscape.
It's like they got a master class in Mexican mining, which is no easy feat. And then, get this, they financed the whole thing with debt. That kept their shares from getting diluted. They were basically betting on strong cash flow to pay off the debt quickly. And what do you know? They repaid the whole loan in just 3 months.
Wow, that says a lot about how much confidence they have in these assets and in their ability to make this plan work. It's clear they're not just taking a wild swing, they're backing it up with smart financial moves. That kind of performance gets investors' attention.
Okay, so let's break it down. La Colorada, one of the mines they acquired, they actually restarted production back in January. They're focusing on a newly defined area called the Junkyard Stockpile. And they're not wasting any time. They've got 5 drill rigs going, targeting those shallow oxide gold reserves. That could make their expansion plans a lot cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, their goal is to boost production at La Colorada to somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 ounces of gold every year. That's a huge increase from where they are now. And here's where it gets even more interesting. They're finding these high-grade gold intercepts deeper down. That means they might be able to do underground mining there on top of the open pit they're already working on. It adds a whole other dimension to La Colorada's potential.
It's like they're uncovering hidden treasure everywhere they look. And check this out. Some of their drill results show that what they thought was just waste material could actually be ore. Talk about turning trash into treasure.
Right. It really highlights the expertise of their exploration team. They're not just digging holes, they're analyzing every bit of data to make sure they're getting the most value out of these assets. It's those kinds of decisions that can completely change a mine's profitability.
Now let's switch gears to their other producing mine, San Agustin. It's on standby right now in what they call a care and maintenance phase. But they're expecting to get the green light for an open pit expansion pretty soon, which means they can fire things back up in the second half of this year.
And that mine, it could be a serious cash generator. They're projecting something like $40 million in cash flow between now and the end of 2026. That's a lot of capital they can use to fuel their growth plans.
They really seem to have a knack for taking what might look like underperforming assets and turning them into money-making machines. And they're not stopping there. They're even looking into extending the mine's life by exploring for both oxide and sulfide gold deposits.
That's a smart approach. Oxide gold is usually easier and cheaper to extract, but sulfide deposits can be huge even if they require more complex processing. By going after both, they're keeping their options open and increasing the chances of finding more gold. It's really something to see how Heliostar is making their mark on the Mexican gold mining scene. They're riding this wave of positive sentiment, but doing it smartly, navigating all the complexities.
It really is like they're playing chess, thinking several moves ahead while still going after their goals aggressively. And speaking of bold moves, let's talk about their flagship project, Anapola. Remember, they made the decision to go with underground mining there instead of an open pit operation.
Oh yeah, that got people talking.
It did. But it's turned out to be a pretty brilliant move strategically.
No doubt about it. By choosing underground mining, they can target that high-grade core of the deposit. It's like going straight for the richest vein of gold, maximizing their return. It's all about prioritizing quality over quantity.
So they're laser focused on extracting the most valuable ore, which of course means higher profits in the end. And I've also heard this approach minimizes their environmental impact.
Exactly. They're being mindful of sustainable mining practices, which is a big deal these days for investors and the communities around these projects. Now, speaking of numbers, their feasibility study for Ana Paula is supposed to come out later this year, and they're projecting production to be around 100,000 ounces of gold per year. That's a serious amount of gold.
And they're not slowing down. They're aiming to make a decision on construction by the end of this year, with production starting in 2027. That's a pretty aggressive timeline.
And they've got the drill results to back it up. Remember those incredibly long, high-grade intercepts they've been hitting? Like that 161 meters grading 4.26 grams per ton of gold? Those are the kind of numbers that get investors excited.
Absolutely. And on top of that, they've found these new satellite zones that are open for exploration. Every time they drill at Ana Paula, it seems like they find even more potential.
That's the beauty of exploration. You never know what you're going to find until you dig a little deeper. These satellite zones could add a ton of value to the project, potentially extending its life and making it even more profitable. It's like finding bonus levels in a video game.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've got the production potential, high-grade ore, these expanding resources. But what about the cost of actually building this thing? Underground mining can get pretty dicey, right?
You're not wrong. However, Heliostar believes that the high grades at Ana Paula will more than offset those costs, resulting in a very profitable operation. Their estimated initial capital expenditure will likely be in the ballpark of $200 to $250 million. It's a significant chunk of change, but not unreasonable considering their financial track record and cash flow.
Plus, they have some big names backing them, like Eric Sprott. He's a legend in the mining world. And Franklin Templeton, too. Having that kind of financial muscle behind them gives them a lot of flexibility.
Exactly. These investors bring more than just money to the table. They bring their expertise and connections. It's like having a team of experienced Sherpas guiding you through the toughest parts of the climb.
Speaking of tough terrain, let's talk about Mexico itself. We've mentioned the complex mining scene there, but I'm curious about how Heliostar is dealing with the political and regulatory side of things.
That's the key question, isn't it? And it's something that Charles Funk, their CEO, is very aware of. He knows how important it is to build those relationships with local communities, government officials, and regulatory bodies.
So it's not just about extracting gold, it's about building trust and creating partnerships that benefit everyone involved.
Exactly. They're really taking a proactive approach to community engagement. They're working directly with local stakeholders to make sure their projects are bringing tangible benefits to the area, things like infrastructure improvements, job creation, support for social programs. It's about creating a win-win for both the company and the communities where they operate.
That's great to hear. More mining companies should think that way. It's not just the ethical thing to do, it's good business. When a company has that strong social license to operate, they're much less likely to run into regulatory roadblocks or pushback from communities.
Absolutely. And that commitment to responsible mining is really appealing to investors these days. More and more people are prioritizing those environmental, social, and governance factors, ESG.
ESG is becoming a major factor in investing, that's for sure. Companies like Heliostar, who are taking those principles seriously, they're the ones that are going to be well positioned for the future. It definitely gives them an edge.
No question. They're not just checking boxes, they're making ESG a core part of how they do business.
Okay, so they're aiming for a construction decision on Ana Paula by the end of the year. What are the big milestones they need to hit to get there?
Well, first things first, they need to finalize that feasibility study and make sure the project makes financial sense. That's the foundation for getting financing and starting construction.
Right, that feasibility study will give them the detailed engineering plans, cost estimates, projections for the mine's performance. It's basically a roadmap to success.
Exactly. And just as important, they're going to need to get all the permits and approvals from the Mexican government. Permitting can be a long and complicated process, especially in a country like Mexico.
True, but Heliostar has a pretty good track record on that front. They've already secured permits for their other projects, San Agustin and La Colorada, so they know how the system works.
Yeah, that experience will definitely come in handy as they navigate the permitting process for Ana Paula. They're not starting from scratch. They've got a solid foundation of knowledge and relationships already.
And I'm sure their commitment to responsible mining and community engagement will help them get those permits too. They're showing that they're a trustworthy operator who takes sustainability and ethical practices seriously.
You're right. But even with everything in place, we've got to be realistic. The mining industry can be unpredictable. What are some of the potential roadblocks Heliostar might face as they develop Ana Paula?
Well, like with any mining project, there's always the risk of unexpected geological issues. They might run into difficult ground conditions that could throw a wrench in their plans or push back the timeline. And of course, there's the volatility of commodity prices. Gold has been doing well, but it's a fickle market. If the price drops significantly, that could change the economics of the project.
Those are the realities of mining, that's for sure. But one thing that works in Heliostar's favor is their focus on high-grade deposits like Ana Paula. They can withstand price fluctuations better because they remain profitable even if the price of gold dips a bit.
So they've built in a buffer against market swings, which is smart. But beyond geological and commodity price risks, what about the bigger picture in Mexico? We hear a lot about corruption and political instability there. How is Heliostar addressing those concerns?
It's a valid question and something any company operating in Mexico needs to take seriously. Heliostar is addressing it head on by upholding really high standards of corporate governance and transparency, and they're actively engaging with local communities and government officials to build trust and make sure everyone benefits from their projects.
So once again, it all comes back to proactive engagement and building a solid reputation.
Exactly. They're showing they're a responsible company committed to ethical and sustainable operations. And they're not putting all their eggs in one basket geographically either. They're exploring opportunities outside of Mexico as well, which helps spread out the risk.
Like a strategic game of risk management, spreading their bets wisely.
Precisely. So if you're an investor looking at Heliostar, what would you say? What advice would you give?
I'd say do your homework. Don't just listen to podcasts or read press releases. Really dig in, research the company thoroughly, understand their projects, and look at their management team. Look for both the good and the bad signs. See if the company is truly competent.
That's great advice. Informed investors are empowered investors. And don't forget about diversification. Never put all your eggs in one basket, even if that basket looks like it's filled with gold. Spread your risk across multiple companies and sectors.
Right, investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's all about making smart decisions and managing your risk. If you like what you see with Heliostar and you're comfortable with the level of risk, then sure, consider adding them to your portfolio. But be aware of both the potential upside and the downside.
Well put. It sounds like Heliostar has a bright future, but like with any investment, it's crucial to stay informed and make decisions that are right for you.
Now, before we move on from Ana Paula, there's one more thing I want to touch on. Their exploration strategy. What are they looking for beyond the deposit that they've already found? It's amazing how much Heliostar has changed in such a short time. They've gone from this small exploration company to one that's got producing mines and a solid pipeline of new projects.
It's like they hit the fast forward button on their growth plan. But the question is, as they get bigger, can they keep up this momentum?
That's the challenge, right? When any company grows this fast, things get more complicated. You got to make sure you've got the right systems in place, the right people, the right processes to handle all that growth.
Yeah, it's more than just buying up new assets. You need a strong foundation if you want sustainable growth.
And from what we've seen, it seems like Heliostar gets that. They're not just chasing bigger production numbers. They're investing in their people, they're strengthening their corporate governance, they're making their operations more efficient. It's like they're building a company that can handle the bumps in the road that inevitably come with growth.
And part of that is bringing in the best people and keeping them. Remember, they just hired a new CFO, Vitalina Leisum. Her resume is impressive. Tons of experience in mining.
That's a smart move. Having a strong CFO is crucial for any company, but especially for a growing mining company. You need someone who can manage the money well, make sure they're following all the rules, and guide them through all the complexities of the industry.
It's like having a seasoned captain at the helm, navigating through the financial storms.
Exactly. And the fact that she was with Gatos Silver before, a company that successfully made the jump from junior explorer to mid-tier producer, that's a big plus. She knows what it takes.
Absolutely. So they're building up their financial expertise, but can they handle the operational side of things as they scale up production and develop all these new projects?
Well, remember that Argonaut acquisition. They got a whole team of experienced operators through that deal. That team already knows how to run mines in Mexico. They're familiar with the environment there, the regulations, the whole nine yards.
That's a huge head start. It's like they got a team that's already in the game and winning.
Right, and they're not stopping there. They're still hiring, bringing in experts in mining engineering, geology, sustainability. They're putting together a really diverse team with all the skills they need to achieve their goals.
So they've got a solid team, their governance is improving, but what about their overall strategy for growth? They've talked about wanting to produce 500,000 ounces of gold per year. How are they going to get there?
Looks like they're taking a multi-pronged approach. They're focused on organic growth, which means expanding their existing mines and exploring for more gold on their current properties. But they're also out there looking for new acquisitions, both in Mexico and maybe in other parts of the world.
A combination of internal growth and smart acquisitions. That's a balanced strategy.
Definitely. And they're being choosy about what they acquire. They want high-quality assets with strong exploration potential and manageable permitting risks.
That's so important. A bad acquisition can really hurt a company. But it sounds like Heliostar is being disciplined. They're not just jumping at every opportunity, they're evaluating each one carefully to make sure it fits with their overall plan and adds value.
Like building a collection of top-notch gold assets, each one carefully selected for its potential.
I like that analogy. So it seems like they've got the team, the strategy, the financial resources to make it all happen. But let's be real, no company is without risks. What are some of the things that could throw them off course?
Well, just like any other mining company, they face those inherent risks of the industry. Commodity prices going up and down, unexpected problems with the geology, permits getting delayed, pushback from communities. Those are all factors that could have an impact.
And in Mexico specifically, you've got those broader political and economic risks, things like corruption, instability, changes in government policies. Those can create real challenges for mining companies.
It's something to consider, for sure. But it seems like Heliostar is well aware of those risks, and they're doing what they can to minimize them.
Right. They're focused on building those relationships with local communities, government officials, regulators. They want to be seen as a responsible company that operates ethically and sustainably.
So it all circles back to building trust and those win-win partnerships.
Exactly. And remember, they're also diversifying their portfolio, looking beyond Mexico. That helps spread the risk and makes their business more resilient.
Smart move. Not putting all your eggs in one basket, as the saying goes.
Well said. Taking everything into account, it sounds like Heliostar is in a good position to continue its success. They've got a strong team, a solid plan, they're financially disciplined, and they're committed to responsible mining.
Definitely a company worth keeping an eye on. But as always, it's important for investors to do their own research, understand the risks involved, and make decisions that fit their own goals and risk tolerance.
Couldn't agree more. Informed investors are empowered investors.
And remember, mining is a cyclical industry. There will be good times and bad times. Don't panic if the stock price goes down or there's a temporary setback. Focus on the company's long-term potential and its ability to execute its strategy.
That's good advice. Investing is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about having a long-term perspective and being patient.
Well put. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at Heliostar's operations, their financial performance, their growth strategy, the risks they face. You should have a good understanding of this dynamic and ambitious company now.
And hopefully you've gotten some valuable insights that can help you make smarter investment decisions.
If you're interested in Heliostar and you think they have a bright future, then do your homework and consider adding them to your portfolio. But always remember, investing involves risk. Never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Sound advice. And don't forget to diversify. Spread out those investments no matter how tempting a single opportunity might look.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Heliostar metals. We hope you found it informative.
And as always, we encourage you to keep learning, exploring, and making informed decisions about your investments.
Happy investing, everyone.